Have you ever noticed how sometimes the ones who say they are keeping a family together are the very ones that are tearing it apart? Not all at once. It's gradual, nearly imperceptible at first. A glance here, an apology there, a subtle reordering of who is most important. Then one day you wake up and see that the foundation you believed in has been consumed, like termites working behind the scenes. By the time the destruction becomes apparent, it's too late. That's the tale we're entering today. It's not merely concerning shattered vows or strained relationships. It's about how faith, once broken, can cascade through an entire family. Imagine giving decades of your life, believing in a dream of unity, only to discover that dream had been quietly rewritten by someone else. The very idea of family, the one thing that gave meaning to so many sacrifices, turned into a stage where roles were handed out, loyalties tested, and betrayal became the script no one wanted to read. Think back for a moment. Most of us over 50 have lived long enough to see how families change. Children grow up and leave home. Traditions shift. Holidays that once brought everyone together don't feel quite the same anymore. But what happens when those natural changes are replaced by something darker, by manipulation, favoritism, and a constant whisper of us versus them? That's where this story begins. For years, Cody Brown was the patriarch of a large family, a man who thought he was the glue that kept everyone together. Was he? Or was he being deliberately transformed into something of a figurehead, a symbol rather than a leader? His wives, who had been united by a single vision, started to drift apart. Was it due to the stresses of life in the modern world? Or because someone quietly, intentionally, was steering the ship off course? Imagine the children. Children who used to only care about birthdays, responsibilities, or who got to sit in front in the car. When they got older, they started comparing stories, like detectives solving a case. Why did dad miss this significant event? Why did mom cry in the kitchen late at night? Why did the same excuse, a crisis here, a spontaneous errand there, appear in their tales like a broken record? They came to understand the discrepancies were not accidental. They were patterns. And patterns spoke the truth. And then picture being one of them children, sitting around the dinner table, looking across the room at a dad who was once larger than life. The jokes fall flat now. The hugs are stiff. The smile is missing. There's no respect there. There's nothing there but silence. Polite, contained, almost as if he's just another member of the invited company. For a man who took pride in control, that sort of polite exclusion hurts worse than any fight ever could. And then there is Robin. To others, she was the optimistic addition, the woman who could restore harmony, who spoke of love and unity. But to others, she represented the tide turning. Was she really a peacemaker, or was she the designer of division? Did she construct bridges, or did she construct walls so intricately that no one realized it until the gates were closed? Families tend to have that one member, someone smiling sweetly while they reconfigure the chessboard, someone who claims it's all about love even as bits drop off. Was Robin that member, or was she merely swept up in the same whirlwind, holding on to Cody as everything else went through his fingers? Consider Janelle, practical, consistent Janelle, who had invested her time, her energy, and above all her money in what she believed was a common dream. Have you ever put money into something, your savings, your trust, your heart, waking up one day and finding that it wasn't what you believed it to be, that it wasn't an investment but a drain? Janelle came to that place, and in her subtle manner, she started to put lines. Financial independence wasn't an option. It was her statement that she would no longer subsidize a life that had left her behind. And then Meri. Oh, Meri. She remained even after the warmth had dissipated, after her spirit had been tested repeatedly. At other times, the most difficult position to hold is in between, no longer in the faith, but not yet ready to leave. Do you ever find yourself sitting in an empty house and looking back over 30 years and wondering if any of it meant what you thought it meant? That's where Meri was bound to a man who no longer noticed her, tormented by a betrayal she couldn't forget, and uncertain if freedom would be healing or another loss. Christine took the leap. She discovered strength in discovery, in exposing truths long hidden. She was the one who finally spoke aloud what others had whispered to their hearts, that the family was already broken, poisoned from within. She entered into a new life, vivid and unencumbered, though not unmarked. And perhaps that's what freedom does look like at the end. Nowhere near a clean, perfect break, but a decision to walk away from a fire that's already burned down to ash. The Browns placed a dream once on Coyote Pass, a broad stretch of land where all the houses would stand shoulder to shoulder, a testament to unity etched into the very earth itself. But what becomes of a dream when the family that dreamed it also unravels? What happens to commitments when they are based on unstable foundations? One can almost visualize the bare fields, not a future home, but a memorial to never was. And so we are here. A family once known for its numerosity, its boldness to be different, now fragmented. Cody and Robin alone in a home more fort than house. Their children, once the bonds that held them all together, now keeping their distance, their silence stronger than speech, and the other wives. Each one walked away to recraft a life meant to be shared. And all along the questions linger. What is loyalty exactly? Is it staying with someone come hell or high water? Or is it knowing when to leave? Can love endure when it passes through jealousy, power, and manipulation? And most hurtfully of all, how do you heal when the very concept of family has been used against you? This isn't a tale of one man, one wife, or even one family. It's about the decisions we make for love's sake. And the price when those decisions come apart. It's about the heartache of coming to terms with the life you've constructed, might not be the one you imagined. And finding the strength to keep going, to keep believing, after the truth has scarred you. So get comfortable, because the story of Cody, Robin, and the rest of the Browns is not just TV drama. It's a mirror that reflects the tenuous, complex, and achingly human struggle of what it is to belong, and what it is to finally let go. Welcome back to TLC New Updates. Today we're breaking down a story that our inside sources have been quietly piecing together for months. It's a story of deceit, manipulation, and one revelation so stunning it could redefine all that you believed about the implosion of the Brown family. We've all seen Cody's spiral. The frustration, the short fuse, the exhaustion. He's looked like a man carrying the world on his shoulders, worn down by the constant storm of family struggles. But here's the question. Was his breakdown really just the natural outcome of his choices? Or was something more sinister going on behind the scenes? From rumors shared among those close to the situation, Christine Brown hit upon a chilling truth. Robin wasn't only Cody's preferred wife. She might have been the mastermind behind his downfall. The theory runs as follows. Robin masterminded a series of false crises, each one targeted at keeping Cody tied to her apron strings while severing him from everyone else. So today we're unpacking the story of Cody's unraveling, and Christine's shocking realization that his nightmare may have been manufactured all along. But before we dive into the good stuff, you know the drill. If you enjoy the actual behind-the-scenes tales from sister wives and want first crack at this type of in-depth reporting, go ahead and subscribe. Ring the bell so you won't miss the next bombshell. And if you're ready for some real truth, give this video a big thumbs up. It keeps our team digging for the stories you care about. Okay, let's take a step back and examine the Cody Brown we've gotten to know over the past few seasons. This isn't the lively, somewhat goofy dad figure who used to juggle 4 homes with a kind of messy charisma. The Cody we meet today is a shadow of that guy, defensive, wired, snapping at the slightest resistance. His eyes reveal everything stressed, haunted, almost vacant. He's the kind of guy who appears to be under attack. For years, the narrative given to us and to his wives was that the pressure was coming from all directions. The relocation to Flagstaff, the money pit of Coyote Pass, the pandemic fights, Christine leaving, it all rested on Cody's shoulders. He made himself out to be the victim, the man desperately attempting to keep his family intact while everybody else dropped away. And when he described why he spent so much time at Robin's residence, that was couched in terms of survival. He claimed he didn't have the emotional capacity to be a husband to Janelle, Christine, or Meri because he had to deal with putting out fires. Robin's residence was his safe place, or at least so he said. But here's the frightening question. What if those fires never actually occurred at all? What if Robin had been the one secretly lighting the matches? That was the theory Christine Brown apparently couldn't get out of her head, even after the move to Utah. From the outside, removed from the madness, she began to see the patterns. Cody's anxiety didn't look normal. It looked orchestrated, as if he was being maintained at a perpetual state of high alertness that seemed to always advantage one person, Robin. It wasn't stress. It was management. According to sources, Robin had what we're calling a crisis engine, a way of creating one urgent situation after another, all demanding Cody's full attention. Every time he had a chance to reconnect with another wife, boom, a new disaster would suddenly erupt at Robin's. And the timing was just too perfect to be coincidence. Take Janelle, for example. She used to require Cody to sit with her and assist in planning infrastructure for Coyote Pass, spreadsheets, contractors, decisions of importance. Cody had agreed to meet her at her RV, but an hour prior to his departure time, Robin called, hysterical. Little Solomon had a high temperature and was scared, crying for his father. Of course, Cody called off. He assured Janelle they would schedule it again, but the meeting never took place. And lo and behold, that fever broke almost as suddenly as it came. Another example, when Christine's daughter Isabel was getting ready for her spine surgery, Christine pleaded with Cody to be there for support. He said he'd do it, would pack a bag after going to Robin's house. But disaster struck again. Robin called. Aurora was allegedly facing an honor code offense at school, and expulsion was possible. Cody dropped all else and spent 3 days helping with the crisis, leaving Christine to carry Isabel's emotional weight alone. And then there's the classic plumbing emergency. Janelle and Cody had planned a solemn sit-down regarding their sons Garrison and Gabriel. But just as Cody was about to head out, Robin called in a panic. There was a burst pipe. The kitchen was flooding. Cody rushed to the rescue, informed Janelle he couldn't come over, and spent 8 hours at Robin's residence playing handyman. Conveniently, he was too exhausted for days to follow to address anything else. Every time the crisis appeared so immediate, but upon reflection, nearly so perfectly timed as to seem unreal. Cody might have appeared a hero in the moment, rushing to save the day, but really his rescues tended to come at a highly convenient price, avoiding the difficult, emotionally taxing discussions he owed to his other wives and children. And then there is the fourth, and perhaps the most subtle component of this so-called crisis engine, the emotional breakdown trigger. This was Robin's ace in the hole. A plumbing leak or a fever was one thing, but this kind of crisis couldn't be questioned without seeming callous. Robin's older kids had already suffered enough. The anguish of abandonment by their biological dad, and the challenge of assimilating into the Brown clan. Their feelings were delicate, no one will dispute that. But sources say that Robin mastered the art of using that vulnerability. Whenever Cody mentioned spending time with Meri, or even planning something as simple as a daddy-daughter date with Truly, one of Robin's kids would suddenly experience a serious emotional crisis, panic attacks, deep bouts of depression, sudden breakdowns that only Cody could fix. Robin would frame it as if she were helpless, telling Cody, "They only feel safe when you're here. You're the only one who can reach them." The message was unambiguous. Cody wasn't a husband, he was a savior. And if he ever withdrew, Robin and her kids would fall apart without him. It was a story that did two things simultaneously. It made Cody feel powerful, necessary, even heroic, while also seeding resentment against the other wives, who grew to look needy by comparison. This steady stream of emergencies constructed an ideal trap. But Christine's daughter casually dropped by later and said Aurora's crisis was simply a matter of correcting a few citations in a paper. No expulsion, no catastrophe, just a teensy-weensy hiccup. A shiver ran down Christine's spine. That hiccup was why Cody cited for leaving Isabel in the emotional buildup before her spine surgery. And then there was the so-called plumbing catastrophe. Cody spoke of days of work, tearing out drywall, rescuing Robin's kitchen from a biblical flood. He said it left him so exhausted, he couldn't handle anything else for days. Janelle's son subsequently told an interviewer, however, that he had seen a plumber's truck at Robin's residence less than an hour. Robin's children, according to them, said the problem was merely a leaky faucet, a replacement washer, A leaky faucet had been turned into a week's worth of excuse to stay away from his family. That dawning stole Christine's breath. This wasn't hyperbole. This was lying. A well-rehearsed tale meant to trap Cody by Robin's side while keeping him nowhere else. The more Christine fit it together, the darker it seemed. She and the other wives hadn't only been vying with Robin for Cody's attention, they'd been vying with specters, a perpetual procession of fabricated emergencies. Each time they dared to reach out to him, Robin would wave in front of them a fresh emergency to reel him back. It was brilliant, cruel, and devastatingly effective. Robin had constructed a fortress around Cody, not walls or doors, but stress, manipulation, and fear. She wasn't merely his safe haven. She was the storm itself. And that understanding was terrifying for Christine. It reshaped years of hurt and abandonment. It wasn't merely that Cody liked Robin better. It was that the game was rigged to win from the very beginning. But suspicion, however intense, was not evidence. Christine realized that if she ever spoke her hypothesis out loud, she'd be called bitter or jealous. Cody would stand up for Robin to the end of the earth. Janelle would require tangible proof. And Meri might be too scared to even consider it. So Christine made a decision. She had to have irrefutable proof. A smoking gun. She chose to take a desperate, nearly unimaginable course of action. If Cody and Robin were spinning lies in private, she wanted to hear it for herself. She was going to bug the Brown family. It wasn't something she did on the spur of the moment. By all accounts, it followed years of silent anguish and a nauseating discovery that she had been the victim of an orchestrated campaign of manipulation. The straw that broke the camel's back, a fight over Logan's wedding arrangements. And from that point on, Christine ceased to be merely a jealous ex-wife and became reluctant amateur sleuth. Logan's wedding should have been one of those great happy moments that reunited the family. Janelle, being the groom's mother, orchestrated, set on making it seem like an instant of togetherness. She wanted it to be simple. A family meal in which she, Cody, and Christine could sit around, discuss roles, and make Logan realize that in spite of it all, his parents could still remain united. Cody was in agreement. The date was scheduled. For once, it actually appeared to be a step in the right direction. However, 2 days prior to dinner, Janelle's phone rang with a text message from Cody. His was brief. "Something's come up with Dayton. It's serious. I can't make it. We'll have to reschedule." Janelle, accustomed to excuses at this point, pushed for details. Cody became evasive, resorting to the final get out of it. "It's a confidential medical problem." Robin's beside herself. "I need to stay for them. Just see to the dinner yourself." Who was going to dispute that? Who would be foolish enough to challenge the gravity of a medical crisis, particularly when one of Robin's kids was involved? But when Christine learned about it, her stomach rolled. Dayton was a grown man. Naturally, he would have problems here and there. But the timing? Always the timing. Those immaculately timed crises had progressed from coincidence to pattern. And now Christine could see the signature. Robin's signature, written all over it. That was the last push Christine required. She knew, in her heart of hearts, that if there was evidence of manipulation, it would not be in a heated showdown within the home. It would be in the lulls. And she knew precisely where to find it. The garage. Christine had observed a ritual for years. Before Cody ever departed Robin's, or before going on an errand, he and Robin would huddle in the garage by his truck. It was their own little huddle. A minute strategy session where Robin could determine the tone, provide him with his last instructions. She'd witnessed it countless times. If there was a conspiracy, Christine thought, it resided in that garage. The strategy she devised was extreme, perhaps even irresponsible. But to her, the stakes were worth it. She wasn't searching for legal proof. This wasn't about courtrooms or attorneys. It was about truth. Truth for herself. Truth for Janelle. Truth for Meri. Truth for their children. Truth for the years of suffering that now seemed like they could have been anything but accidents, but acts of calculated sabotage. Christine looked to contemporary technology for assistance. A small Wi-Fi, connected security camera, sold as a nanny cam. Black, tiny, near invisible. It sent live video and audio directly to the cloud. She could view and hear from her phone, all the way in Utah. The problem was getting it in. And this is where the broken family relationships provided her with an opportunity. Cody still had boxes of his property stored in the garage at Christine's former Flagstaff home. He never went out of his way to get them. Christine provided a solution, speaking in her most accommodating tone. Hey, I still have some of your stuff. Perhaps one of the kids can drive it over and deposit it in your section of Robin's garage. That way, it's off my hands and you get your stuff back. Cody, wanting to stay out of work, signed off right away. Christine's child, the one whom Cody still trusted, brought in the boxes. In one of them was the camera, set carefully with a small hole removed so it could see clearly out across the garage. Set up perfectly close to Cody's truck, the place where the strategy sessions always took place. Christine told her straightforwardly, stick these boxes in that precise corner. Orient them this way. Don't question, just obey. And there quietly was the witness. Observing from her house in Utah, Christine waited. At first, nothing. Hours of opening and closing garage doors, cars coming and going, normal conversation. She began to wonder if she had made it all up. Maybe Cody was really just stressed out, and Robin's family was just unfortunate. And then it occurred. A Tuesday evening, Janelle had finally pinned Cody down to meeting at 7 p.m. to talk over a money matter for Savannah's school outing. Cody even vowed he'd be there after dinner with Robin's children. At 6:50 p.m., Christine's phone vibrated with a motion alert. Her heart skipped a beat as the feed came alive. The garage light flashed on. There they were, Cody and Robin, entering frame. He jingled his keys, agitated. Okay, I should go, he grumbled. Tired. Janelle's waiting. If I'm late, I'll never hear the end of it. He started to walk toward the driver's side door, but Robin stood in the way, calm, firm, not panicky, controlled. No, you can't, she said. Cody's anger flashed. Robin, I promised her. It's the money for Savannah's trip. I have to go. And then the words that destroyed Christine's world. Robin's voice was firm, measured. I already dealt with it. I just spoke to Brianna. I explained to her that you were getting ready to leave. And I reminded her of how difficult she has when she feels like you're shutting her down. She's waiting for you now. In her bedroom, waiting for you to walk her through a panic attack. You can't go to Janelle's. Not tonight. Cody was caught in his tracks. Perplexed. A panic attack. She was fine at dinner. Robin reached up, smoothing his shirt, half gentle, half commanding. She is okay now, Cody, because I assured her you'd be there. Do you recall what you swore to me? You promised that you would put our children's emotional health above all else, above the other wives' rumors. If you leave now, it'll devastate Brianna. It'll make her believe that you're more interested in Janelle's money than your child's mental health. Christine, miles away, saw her chest constrict. This was it, the script, the staged crisis, the emotional blackmail exposed. Cody's shoulders slumped. His authority dissipated in seconds. Okay, fine. What am I supposed to say to Janelle? Robin didn't flinch. The answer was reflexive, practiced, as if she'd been waiting for the question. Cody pocketed his keys again, defeated, and trailed Robin back inside. The garage light flicked off, and Christine glared at a black screen. But to her, it seemed like the brightest light she'd ever witnessed. She finally had it, the truth, raw and undeniable. Robin wasn't merely exaggerating issues. She was creating them, meticulously writing Cody's lines of excuse, playing her own children as pieces in a heartless ongoing drama. And Cody, he wasn't taking charge. He wasn't even pushing back. He was reading lines, like an actor in a play Robin had scripted. Christine sat transfixed, phone clutched in her hand. The silence of her living room was oppressive. She replayed the clip once, then again, a third time. With each listen, her heart cracked a little more. It wasn't the words themselves that broke her. It was the tone. Robin's voice wasn't panicked, insecure, or even emotional. It was calm, calculated, cold, like a CEO running a strategy meeting. Every detail had been orchestrated. Tell her it's serious. Stay vague. Make yourself the victim. Remind her you're exhausted. And Cody, her husband of all these years, had just nodded in agreement. No resistance. No fury. No struggle. just silent compliance. Okay, yeah, trapped. I can manage that. That was when Christine saw something that hurt, that Cody she had loved, the so-called head of the family, was gone. What stood in his place was an employee answering to his supervisor. And Robin wasn't his wife alone. She was his handler. Shock soon turned into grief. Not victory, not vindication, just profound, hurting sorrow. Sorrow for herself, for Janelle and Meri, for her children, even in a warped kind of way. For Cody himself, he didn't even notice it. How Robin had taken his best intentions and turned them into weapons. She stroked his ego, used his need to be a good dad, and manipulated his love for her children to chop down the rest of the family tree. He believed he was being a protector, a hero, but he was actually just a pawn. All day, Christine held her secret close. She knew letting it out would be unleashing a nuclear explosion in a family already in shambles. What would it repair? It wouldn't restore Cody. It wouldn't erase the years of sorrow. But holding it inside felt worse. It would mean allowing Janelle and Meri to continue blaming themselves, battling specters without ever knowing the true adversary. So, she made a decision. They needed to hear it, but not over the phone. This had to be face to face. Christine first called Janelle. I need to see you, she said firmly. And Meri, the three of us. Somewhere private, it's important. Janelle, ever the practical one, pushed back at first. Christine, I'm busy. Cody's been impossible lately. What's this about? Christine's voice grew hard. Trust me, Janelle. You have to hear this. It's about Cody. It's about everything. Something in her words had the weight of truth, and Janelle nodded without a word. Meri was tougher. She was still grasping on to shreds of hope, still knotted up about Cody and Robin, but with Janelle's aid, they persuaded her. A few days later, the three founding wives huddled in a small rented Airbnb on the outskirts of Flagstaff. The atmosphere was heavy with history, years of love, anger, and unspoken hurt. Christine didn't dawdle. I know why he never shows up, she said, her gaze alternating between them. Why he's always at Robin's. Why he's always too overwhelmed for us. It's not just choice, it's being engineered. Janelle crossed her arms, unconvinced. Engineered. Christine, please. He's just checked out. He's overwhelmed. Meri shook her head, fidgeting with a ring on her finger. Robin she wouldn't do that. She loves this family. Christine regarded them both, firm and unwavering. I have proof. Her own hand shook a little as she took out her phone. She set out the narrative. The timing of the emergencies, the last-minute crises that always kept Cody at bay, the never-ending excuses. She detailed the camera in the garage, preparing herself for censure. Janelle's eyes opened, but she did not scold. She only nodded, her movements slow and deliberate, as if conceding she might have done the very same thing had the idea ever crossed her mind. Then Christine pressed play. The room fell silent, with the exception of the sound of Cody's tired voice, Robin's soothing instructions, and Cody's defeated compliance. Janelle's expression transitioned from shock to hard, cold anger. To her it was indisputable. Each dinner canceled, every money talk Cody had sidestepped, every time he'd made her feel as though her needs were an inconvenience. It had all been staged, rehearsed lies. Strategic moves in a war no one knew was being fought. She wasn't just ignored. She'd been controlled, disarmed. Meri's reaction was quieter, and somehow more heartbreaking. She didn't rage. She cried. Silent tears streamed down her face as she listened to Robin coaching Cody on how to lie. For years, Meri had clung to a fragile hope that maybe if she worked hard enough, if she befriended Robin, if she endured enough, she could win her way back into Cody's heart. But that illusion was broken by the recording. Robin hadn't merely dismissed her attempts. She had been actively constructing walls to prevent her entry. Meri hadn't been ascendant on the path towards making up. She'd been rapping on the gates of a fortress where the queen had no intention whatsoever of ever allowing her entry. The devastating truth struck Christine, Janelle, and Meri as a tidal wave. The woman Christine had so desperately attempted to befriend was in reality the very blueprint of their family's downfall. Each sympathetic smile, each tear-stained hug from Robin, now manifested as staged performance. Behind the compassion was manipulation cold enough and deliberate enough to redefine the narrative of their lives. When the recording ended, silence hung in the room like smoke after an explosion. None of them dared to speak at first. Finally, Janelle broke the stillness, her voice simmering with fury. She's been playing all of us. She's been using Cody as her weapon. Step by step, she dismantled everything we built. Christine's own tears running down her own face, she whispered the unspeakable. He's trapped. She gets him to think he's only worth something with her. She invents the mess, and then has him feel like a hero for cleaning it up. But she's the one who's fanning the flames. Meri's face contorted in horror, growing. Loyalty, she breathed. All these years he's bellowed about loyalty. But it wasn't loyalty to the family. It was loyalty to her. Every time we gave him our hearts, she was drilling him to be disloyal to us. It was a crushing realization. Cody's fixation on loyalty had never been his own thought. It was Robin's tool, a term distorted to imply unwavering compliance with her and her kids. Anyone who questioned things, Janelle with finances, Christine with love, even Cody's own sons who required their dad, was branded disloyal and sanctioned with cold shoulders, removal, or ire. The so-called Airbnb summit was no family gathering. It was a funeral. At that moment, the three founding wives privately accepted that the family they had invested decades into creating was lost, not through organic decay, but by incremental, calculated destruction. The foe wasn't merely Cody's ego, or the challenge of plural marriage. The foe was a campaign conducted with patience, specificity, and remorseless purpose by one woman who desired a monogamous marriage disguised in polygamy. Robin hadn't simply won. She had burned the land, making sure no one else could stand at her side. But what was there to do with this information? Confront Cody? Of no use. He was too far under Robin's control, too prone to anger and withdrawal into her arms. Confront Robin? Worthless, she'd weep, lie, and contort herself into victimhood again. So the wives did something different. They decided to free themselves from guilt. Janelle ceased assuming she was too independent. Christine ceased assuming she was too needy. Meri ceased tormenting herself with what she should have done differently. This wasn't a public revolt. It was a private emancipation. They weren't failures, they were survivors of a psychological siege. For Janelle, the discovery brought courage to completely break away, financially, emotionally, spiritually. For Meri, it was the nail in the coffin of her hope, the bitter truth she had to begin envisioning a life outside the cul-de-sac. And for Christine, it was the sorrowful verification that leaving wasn't courageous, it was a matter of survival. Christine hadn't abandoned a family. She had escaped captivity. In the meantime, Cody stayed in Robin's home, king of a dying kingdom constructed upon deception. Forever anxious, forever fighting fires, never knowing the arsonist slept in his bed. He was no tragic hero of polygamy. No, he was the tool Robin used against his own family. And perhaps the most tragic reality of all is this: he'll probably die thinking she lied, never realizing the cage she had constructed around him. The Browns' demise wasn't sudden. It was erosion, lie by lie, until ashes and regret remained. And yet it's easy to read this as the end of the tale, a melancholy, quiet resignation by three women. But the reality is, the repercussions had only just started. The wives were done playing the game. Cody and Robin, though, were still acting. But now their audience had departed. It was here that the dynamic changed into something more sinister than arguments. It turned into a cold war. Silences were used as weapons. Distantness became staying alive. And the children, having been silent witnesses for so long, started to recede as well. The immediate aftermath was subtle but seismic. Janelle, armed with truth, simply stopped trying. She no longer called Cody for his opinion on Coyote Pass. She no longer begged him to mend things with their sons. Their conversations became stripped to bare logistics. When Cody would text, something came up at Robin's. "I'm overwhelmed." Janelle no longer pleaded or bargained. Her reply was a single word. Noted, that single word answer sent him crazy. He needed drama, needed tug of war, needed to be pursued for his attention. But Janelle had let go of the rope. When he goaded her with guilt, "I guess you don't care. I'm drowning over here," she calmly replied. I'm sure you and Robin have it handled." Rather than looking inward at his own contribution to her pulling away, Cody distorted it as evidence of her betrayal. He rushed to Robin, lamenting, "She doesn't care anymore. She doesn't fight for the family." And Robin, ever the thespian, played her role. "I know, honey, it's so sad. She was never a team player. But you and I, we're the only ones who really know what family means. It's us against the world." And so Janelle's freedom was again transformed into another brick for Robin's fortress. Meri's transformation came quietly, yet it carried a weight that shook Cody in ways he couldn't admit. For years, she had been his most loyal, if overlooked soldier. The wife who never stopped showing up, who defended him when others questioned him, who clung to the fragile hope of reconciliation even as he pushed her aside. But the revelation of Robin's cold, calculated manipulation severed the final thread binding her to that hope. She ceased posting her mysterious social media statements regarding love and loyalty. She ceased setting up accidental run-ins with Cody at Robin's place. She simply backed away. Meri devoted her time to her bed and breakfast, her LuLaRoe business, and friendships well outside the claustrophobic sphere of the family. When Cody did see her, he was confronted with someone unrecognizable. The desperate eyes that once searched his face for crumbs of affection were gone, replaced by a look of weary detachment. To him, her indifference felt like betrayal. Meri's longing had been fuel for his ego, proof that even if he rejected her, he was still desired, still the patriarch. Losing that longing felt like rejection in its purest form. What Cody never grasped was that Meri wasn't abandoning her family. She was mourning its murder. And now she knew who had orchestrated the crime. But the most earth-shattering fallout didn't come from Meri's quiet withdrawal. It came from the children. Christine, having to choose between defending her children and freeing them from the years of confusion, made a difficult decision. She told the older children part of the truth. Not the whole truth about the secret tape, but the overall pattern of manipulation. She described the staged emergencies, the big picture crises, the manner in which Robin caused chaos so that Cody would ride in as the hero. For children such as Peyton, Mykelti, Gwen and Isabel, who had grown up fighting against feelings of abandonment, the disclosures came as a bombshell. For Isabel, the blow was particularly hard. Her dad's not being there for her spinal surgery had been the greatest hurt of her life. She had swallowed his reason. That rigid COVID policies had left him no choice, even as it ripped her apart. But now she found out the horrifying reality. Cody had missed her surgery not due to a pandemic protocol, but due to a phony school emergency involving one of Robin's girls. A manufactured crisis for Robin's son had superseded his actual daughter's life-changing surgery. That understanding broke something within Isabel. The dad she had yearned for, the one who would leave his entire world for her, had never existed at all. Instead, there was a man who followed his fourth wife's script, regardless of the price. It wasn't neglect, it was a decision. And that decision snapped the final tenuous thread of expectation she felt for anything from him. Janelle's sons, Garrison and Gabriel, responded with equal passion. Their fight with Cody had been smoldering for years, fueled by his absence and hypocrisy during the pandemic. They felt he had left them, their mother, and their sister, Savannah. When Janelle, in her own calm directness, verified what Christine had discovered, that a lot of Cody's excuses weren't simply weak but flat-out lies concocted by Robin, their smoldering anger burst into full-blown fury. For Gabriel, who had already cried breaking down in front of his father for forgetting his birthday, the news was catastrophic. His father's absence wasn't clumsiness. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was intentional. He wasn't just being ignored, he was being erased. To Garrison, protector of his brothers and sisters, it was war. His father's allegiance to Robin was not favoritism, far from it. It was a weapon against their side of the family. There was growing resentment, simmering resentment, hardening into overt contempt. Whatever residual respect they had for their father as patriarch dissolved. They no longer saw Cody as a flawed man trying to do the impossible. They saw him as a willing actor in Robin's cause, not their father, not their leader, just her mouthpiece. And from that point on, their disengagement was complete. They weren't just angry sons anymore. They were done. The older children, once dispersed in their own disarray, were now soldiers united by a common enemy, and this solidarity posed an unexpected problem for Cody and Robin. Their well-rehearsed tale, that they were the victims of a disobedient, disrespectful family, was beginning to fall apart before them in the face of a competing narrative. The children were corroborating each other's stories. Janelle's children were confirming Christine's.